floors. He's too deep, 2 people deep, to be precise. The other chart is the operations department. So same color coding. The green folks are either part-time or full-time temporary. Those shaded in yellow used to be museum services when that department was dissolved and absorbed last summer by the operations department. So the names are associated. You're probably familiar with most of these guys, at least their names anyway. And those are the responsibilities they have now. So Joe Campbell is now the paint shop supervisor. If you see their weekly reports, the guys are doing the flight deck. They're now working on Lappy, actually painting for them. Exhibits, Brian Parsons. He's got Randy Fleming, and that's it. So he's 1 deep, and he really is in charge of maintaining all the tour routes and all the exhibits in the entire museum. So everything from the Vietnam support base, the towers over there, the physical structure, he redid the the dock for the PBR. To gosh, he did that photo stand cutout, but he does a lot more of that. All the refurbishment of all the exhibit cases and things like that as well. Quite a few of the electronics. Slide over. I know it looks confusing. Oh, the event planner, Bobby's in charge of Melissa and Jim. That is not correct. That is somewhat of a disparate group that perform different functions. Melissa is still the curator, the curatorial duties that she's always had, and Jim Vickers in graphic arts, same thing. They report directly, each of those 3 people, Bobby, Melissa, and Jim, report directly to me, because I'm vacant and operations manager, as you can see by this chart. So that's the skinny. I've got 10 vacancies in the operations department, and of course education department is completely wiped out at this time.
So under exhibit supervisor, is that 2 people, Randy and Brian?
That's 2 people. Brian Parsons is the supervisor, and he's got Randy. Last September, we had a carpenter retire, and we just received approval to hire against that position before the end of the fiscal year. It sounds like it wouldn't be critical. It is absolutely a critical position, just due to the incredible number of exhibits and display cases and stages and walls that we have. We need a certified carpenter on board, and we don't. We manage or we contract it out. Painting. We never had a paint shop before last summer. A dedicated, nothing but painting. That's the #1 maintenance task we do. At Patriots Point. It was always a catch-all team with 3 vessels and 28 aircraft and support base. Painting is by far the long pole in the tent on what we do for restorative maintenance. Joe and his crew are easily the busiest team. There's ceaseless amount of things for them to paint. So they also dual hat and take care of the aircraft. Joe is our long-standing member. He's basically passed down through tribal lore on how to maintain and take care of all the rotary and fixed-wing aircraft on the ship. So most everybody on that chart is dual-hatted in some form or function, outside of public safety, fire safety, which are and custodians, which are self-explanatory. But as I mentioned last week, I've got my fire safety supervisor building a knot tying board, and that's going pretty well as well. So if there's any specific questions, it's working very well from a maintenance standpoint, at least from my perspective. So the maintenance manager, David Coates, has six shops underneath him, and it's working out really, really well, especially with the addition of Brian and Joe. Because what used to happen when you had a separate museum services department, there was extreme amount of confusion amongst the staff writ large. So not just the FTE folks, but also volunteers. They'd call or they'd submit a work order. Nope, that's the maintenance. Nope, that's museum services. Now it's unity of effort. There's one maintenance manager, and he can delegate tasks as he sees necessary for each of those departments. And it's just, I think productivity's gone way higher than it used to. So I think those guys appreciate it as well, because they have clear tasks on a daily basis and they're getting after it. So again, I'm not going to talk to yours. I think it's going to be a separate discussion, but we don't have much to discuss at this point.
Well, I do have to agree with Mike. I think it's running much smoother exhibit is a perfect example. I would have had to go to 2 different groups to get anything done. Having this one setup, just one chain of command, it just works so much better.
Good.
Good, okay. Okay, so that's our update on that's the org chart.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the current and projects and to include fragile artifacts exhibit.
Yes. The Fragile Collections exhibit. So we are deep into planning. We've had a few, several formal and informal meetings about the Fragile Collections exhibit. So there's a team, your artist or your developer for this is Melissa Buchanan. So just to kind of back this up, last summer I spoke with Melissa and I wanted to kind of get a feel for over the next 3 years what her thoughts were for a plan as we're putting together the 3-year plan after the COVID shutdown. And the top of the list for fiscal year 22 was the Fragile Collections exhibit. We determined that the harbor room, which is in Hangar Bay 1, really only used every now and then for board meetings, things of that nature, and it only got rented about 6 times a year. So we're going to utilize that space because it's conditioned. It can be locked, and if you recall, about 1.5 years ago, we used it for the Picturing NAM exhibit. It just lends itself to the ideal location for this enduring exhibit. So I know I'm throwing a ton of paper at you, and I'm not expecting you to keep that, but there's a conceptual design layout that Jim Vickers threw together after speaking with Brian Parsons and Melissa, and some of the items that are go in there. We actually spent about an hour plus yesterday discussing the layout from a standpoint of what could go where, how often it would rotate, things of that nature. And it was a great discussion. I think that we have there's 2 of these. I'm sorry, you guys can, if you'd like to discuss it. So everything from artwork to sailor art to sailor artifacts, things that sailors carried on the ship, to actual almost priceless artifacts like the Laffey Okinawa flag and D-Day flag, to the Laffey, the original, I guess, the DD 459 flag that we'll put on display as well. That's on loan to us. So the concept is, and it's written in there, if I can kind of explain it: short, medium, long rotation. Every 6 months, everything won't be rotated out of there. Some items will be enduring for maybe, let's say, a 12-month period. Other items can be every 3, 4, maybe quarterly. Some items or paintings exchanged. Melissa will be the first one to tell you, we have, I don't know how many hundreds of original artwork, paintings, things like that.
As of my last count, we have 86 framed pieces of artwork, prints, and then we have many, many more that are currently unframed. And the goal was to start with our framed pieces first, and then go through our unframed ones and see which ones that we like the best, and then maybe put those on a rotational basis a little bit later down the line. And then we just have, as Jim has now gone downstairs to storage, and I think I blew his mind with everything that was down there, we have just a large variety of both items that sailors carried aboard the ship, or that they made while they were here on the ship, or just artifacts that came from not just our ships here, but from others that we can rotate through and kind of give a due justice. Because many of these items I just can't put out for fear of mold or mildew with our lack of, it's the hangar deck, there's no climate control. If you plant a garden like I do last year, you know that everything molded and mildewed with your tomato plants. So it's horrendous for the long-term longevity of these items. So they need somewhere where they can have some climate control, have some light control, and look at it and go, this thing's fragile. It can only go out for about 3 months, like our silk ribbons from the commissioning, or christening, excuse me. But other items can stay out 12 to 18 months with the climate control, with the light control.
So it's secured every night. We'll have it initially open for about 6 days a week, just based on volunteer ability to support, because we'll have to post someone inside there, because some of these are priceless exhibits. Public safety will lock it up. I think we said 10 to 3 o'clock daily, and that's the high time, high visiting hours, and then it'll be secured by our team. Trying to think of what else really. Moving forward, we've allocated, after discussing budget-wise, the good thing about this, it's not going to be overly expensive. I'm going to set aside $15,000 for next year. That's everything from, hopefully we won't have to fabricate too many display cases, refurbishing, revitalizing, painting, things of that nature. But that's over the course of the year as we rotate things out. We might have to spend money towards, but I don't think we're going to use anywhere near that much. So it's not an expensive project, quite frankly. I think it's going to be a really good one.
And you know, it's something that brings people back.
Yes.
So I think it'll be well worth whatever investments put in it. Well worth it.
A couple other just quick notes. If you recall, I think it's been through last November, December, the Devotion film production. That's the film that's being. It's a Korean War epic about the Medal of Honor recipient who intentionally crash landed his plane to save his wingman. They're filming that down in Savannah. They borrowed quite a bit of equipment from us, captain's chairs, ready room chairs, sinks of that nature to they built a mock-up of a carrier instead of filming up here, and they're returning all that stuff. They finished, I guess they've wrapped up at least what they need from us. So all of this will be restored. We have 20 ready room chairs that have been restored, a captain's chair. This stuff will go back on we're actually going to replace some ready room chairs that are in poor condition with these fully restored chairs, and a few sinks over on Tour Route 1 that these guys revitalized for us. So kind of a win. I think that happens. Are they going to be here tomorrow or is it Monday?
It's as of 15 minutes ago. They'll be here Monday at 8 a.m.
Monday at 8 a.m. Great.
What would you say is the value of all that?
It costs between to have
The refurbishment of the chairs for the Firefly was, if I can recall, I believe it was $5,000 for 2 chairs, and then plus the cushion cost.
So you think 100,000, 50, 75, 20?
I could easily see pushing 50.
Yeah.
Because they took those ready room chairs that were sitting down below deck, Susan. They were in horrible condition. All new backing. They stripped them down and repainted them and put them back together better. So easily, I would say. And if there's 20 of them, if they're spent, I could only guess at least $50,000.
At least 50.
Easily.
If we had to do that ourselves, we would have laughed.
Right.
You could put them in your closet.
Hey, I'm thinking they would look really nice on my back porch.
Wow, that's great. That's great news.
It was a win.
Sure, certainly is. Okay, is there any questions or anything further from museum services? Anything?
One more thing, ma'am. I just want to make sure that you're. So this is what's known as the Talos Missile. I'm sure you've seen it every time you drive into Patriots Point. It's no explanation needed of how it looks. A few months ago, last December, after seeing how it's faded and corroded, we were trying to put together a plan to restore it. If you recall in your mind's eye, this used to sit at about a 30-degree angle. It wasn't horizontal. It used to be like this. Our maintenance staff went over there and looked at it. That base is completely corroded. It's unsafe. People actually walking underneath it. Our guys, it didn't take much to lower it, because if it wasn't, maybe within the next 6 months, it was going to fall anyway to a horizontal position. This came from the Charleston Navy Yard in the early 1990s when that closed down. There was no paperwork, there was no receipt. It was just basically go over there and scavenge stuff, bring it back to Patriots Point. What this is a anti-ship, anti-aircraft missile. It was never fired from the Yorktown, never carried on Laffey. It really doesn't have any ties, historical ties to any of our ships. It's just a neat looking thing that is now falling apart, frankly. I contacted the U.S. Navy folks up in Dam Neck, Virginia, the Guided Missile School, and they were surprised how long it had lasted out in the elements. This missile is 32 feet long, and it's about 3,400 pounds. Several of the aluminum the several plates, if you can imagine, have corroded to the point that they're peeling away, and it would cost me. First of all, my guys told me, and they can restore quite a bit. They can't restore this thing. They don't have the ability to restore it safely. I've got no ties to it. I've got no paperwork for it, and it's now become a safety issue. It's outlasted its utility here. Sadly, our only course of action remaining, instead of reinforcing failure and spending a lot of money toward it, is to dismantle it. That portion that it sits on, we have a plan to landscape it instead of putting another artifact there, but to landscape this area. There is, if you can again, on your way out, picture in your mind's eye, there's right next to it, there's a 40 millimeter deck gun, there's a torpedo, and then there's also an anti-aircraft gun out there. Tomorrow, Terry Ainsley will go over the property management. All these things have to find a home within about 2 years. I have no home for these things. I have no place to put them on the ships. They're rather large. That's why I am strongly leaning towards. There's no way to save it. We need to dismantle it and take it apart. No one wants this thing. It was designed to blow up. It was designed as it's not an aircraft. It's falling apart after 40 years in the elements because it wasn't designed to last like the aircraft on the flight deck. So I can safely dismantle it. I can't safely put it back together. I just don't have the skill set or the money for it.
So, is that a rare artifact or something common that's all over the place, or what is it?
There are 6. So I did it. The only way I could determine this, here's the bottom line. There are 6 locations in the United States that still have them, and most of them 3 of them belong to the United States Navy. The Guided Missile School in Dam Neck, Virginia. There's another school in Yorktown, Virginia, run by the Navy, and then there's one in Texas. They all have these missiles on display. They have them on display inside, either in warehouses or in other sorts of facilities. None of them are on display outside. The only other places on display outside, there was one in Texas that was in the same condition, and they had to take it apart because it fell apart. Is it that important of our artifact? I've had this discussion with Melissa, and the resounding answer is
Not for our purposes.
it's not a.
Define our purposes.
Not for our purposes.
What are our purposes?
Well, normally we say naval and maritime and naval aviation, but that flew off of. It was used on cruisers, and quite frankly, I can't find any reason why this shipyard had it.
And it's from, how old is it?
1958 to 1979, so it had 21-year service life. The Navy found it to be, it's too large. So it's a 32-foot long missile that weighs about 3 tons. If you can picture again, think of the Laffey. You couldn't have too many of these on the ship. So you fire one, maybe 2 of them. You don't have that many in storage. Now you're out. You're out. So these aren't.
Fit on the Laffey?
This did not. This never was on the Laffey. I want to make sure that's the point. This was on a cruiser.
On a cruiser.
We don't have any ties to this historically with any of our vessels here. This was just something that the guys went over. Yeah, we'll take it when the base shut down.
Well, is there anybody else in the country that wants it? That would be more appropriate for?
In its current condition, no one wants a missile
But
that's
if we
falling
put it
apart.
out there that it's available?
I can put that out there. When I talked to the folks at Dam Neck, their overall impression was, in that condition, no one's going to pay for it to come get it. They're going to say you're going to have to pay for it to be shipped somewhere. To put that on a lowboy and send it off to X museum for them to have to fix, because I want you to understand, Susan, this isn't display ready right now. It's falling apart. There were 75 gallons of water inside there and live animals living in this thing when it was sitting like this. When we lowered it, we had to pump it out and then shoo the animals and all the wildlife that were living in there away. It's actually in worse condition than it looks in this photograph, which was taken yesterday.
What's the timing on getting into this? When?
I have not set a timeline for it. I told my guys don't spend any money on it because it's a kind of a lost cause. It's a lost effort.
Well, a couple of things that I think we might get some blowback from is, number one, we're talking about not doing anything to the property because Bennett's getting ready to tear it up. So why would we spend money to landscape that area?
Well, I would say this to you. The only reason I'm landscaping is when you remove this, you're going to have, if you can take a good close look at that, that's a platform of just grass. I could just leave it grass, for sure.
So that's number one. So that's a question that I think that we'd hear. The number two is how hard did we try to find a home for it? Because we don't really need to get into continue the reputation and the question about we're a museum and yet we're getting rid of a submarine, all these things, and they're all based on money or lack thereof.
It is, yes, ma'am.
And I'm just thinking if we're trying to deal with the Clamagore in a good way, that I just think that, to hear your explanation of it, I get it, but how many people that hear this are going to hear that explanation? I just wonder about the timing.
Okay.
Do you agree, Wayne?
I agree with what you're saying. I think we ought to get rid of it.
I'm just
Yeah.
sensitive in a
I
sensitive kind of
Yeah.
political way.
And may I also add, the last time I spoke to the Navy, their words were, we don't care, essentially, is what it boiled down to.
But there's only 6 of them in existence.
Yeah, but they.
No, there's more. There are 6 locations in the United States that currently have them on display. I don't know how many. I know that there's, I think, 3 up in Dam Neck. I didn't do a count. I didn't ask each one of them how many are on display. It's not, how do I put this? It's not something that's iconic as far as a weapon system that was utilized and to great effect.
It didn't blow up anything.
There was one MiG shoot down during Vietnam. It shot down, one of these from my research, the USS Chicago shot down a MiG over North Vietnam in 1966 with it, and that was it. One aircraft was brought down with it. That was the only shot fired in anger. It just became too costly, and it's too big. And in modern technology, they're a third of this size now.
That's an interesting thing. I didn't know that much about it.
So actually, it was sort of a mistake. So we want to celebrate it.
Right.
It's a golden toilet.
There's a part of me. I'm probably not painting the picture very well, and I don't mean to spend too much time. It's just how much money and time do we want to spend with all the other more important artifacts and aircraft and ships.
Well, I think what we're saying is let's get rid of it, but let's do it in a sensitive way.
And if I would try and find her home.
Two of us are saying.
Okay.
Anyway.
And that we explored, that we explored options. This was not our first choice to destroy an artifact.
Right. Understood.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, good. I have some. So, on the organizational chart, where have I put it? Who generates, which department with it, who generates the plans for the museum functions, temporary and permanent exhibits, and coordinates content to support the educational programs? On the chart. Who is that person?
To support educational programs?
Mm-hmm. Because we have that partnership that we always, that's been going on forever, of the artifacts, and then, like Doolittle and all your programs that play off of the artifacts. So do you make the choices of the programs that work with the exhibits, or do the exhibits, or is it the other way around? You see what I'm saying?
What would happen?
I'm just asking about the organizational
What would
chart.
happen in the past when David Clark was here? Because that's the last time we really did it, with the exception of the new route, which I really liked, which was with the engine exhibit. We would come up with a concept idea. Then first, we would discuss it with Melissa and on the curators as to the historical value and the assets, and then we would have to discuss it with operations as to space and whether something could be done. So, while we would come up with a lot of ideas, it took those 3 working together to come up with a plan to see if it would work. but we would originally start it. It's not like Melissa would come to me and say, okay, Keith, I want you to teach this into your curriculum. We would find something that fits into the curriculum,
Right.
and then we would look at what assets we have. And I'll bring that up when I talk about how we're proposing this appropriation. But then operations has a huge part in this, in the sense that, you know, I can come up with the craziest idea in the world, and Mike's going to look at me and go like, the space doesn't work, you know, this doesn't work, this is too expensive, and you know, we go back to page 1. But while I come up possibly with a creative idea, it doesn't mean it is physically or financially possible.
Right.
So it is a team concept.
The reason I'm asking that is because in this 2023, whatever it is, plan, this document that we got, the 2023 business plan, there's a statement in, I think it's in here, that says that museum services strictly exists to maintain the maintain things. I'll find it. Hold on, I got it. Just gotta figure out where I put it. Sorry, I'll find this and give it to you. It's right here. I've got it. I hate to rush through papers with y'all sitting here, but we'll come back to that. I'll find that in just a few minutes.
Well, I think to Keith's point, they're mutually supporting.
Right.
For sure.
It's just that is in a description that I read, and that was why I was curious about, you know, where I'm going with all of this is you know, that was stated by Darwin very, very clearly, and with other people on board, that, you know, we've got to restart education, we've got to restart camping. And so how do we do it? How do we do that with as few personnel as we have? So for us to make the case for doing that, and there's a ton of money out there, $1.4 billion, if we request it the right way. So you know, we want to be sure we build a case that shows that we're in a position to move and do forward, and you've got, you know, but these are the people we need to make it happen, because your figures in here and your projections and all for going forward, I mean, you know, there are a lot of great plans, but you know, if we, you know, for all the emphasis we have on repair and for you know, backtracking things, it's hard to make that case to go forward if we don't put it, you know, if we're not clear on what we need and what we want and how we're going to go down the path to get it.
But I think if you listen to the way that I'm proposing to do the appropriation,
I'm gonna give you.
you'll find out that this team concept fits perfectly into the development.
Exactly, and that was what kind of got me about that statement,
Yeah.
and that's why I asked about museum, because there are people in there that do education stuff.
Right. It works.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, that was the point of that. Anything else?
I don't.
Okay.
mean-
Well, sorry for that tediousness.
No problem.
Okay, so we move on to education overnight camping report, which is, I guess, and now that's key. Well, so who does give the camping report? Where is that now?
I did the camping report.
Okay.
And just to give you a little history, Mike, Chris, and I have been working for since November, shooting further back. And we have a very good plan set aside on how to start it up. Sarah did an awful lot of work with Carrie before she left on the safety issues of how to do the 200. So I was talking to Carrie the other day. I mean, we're pretty much set. Carrie's got a good plan. You know, it's just, and as Mike and I were talking, we just need to, you know, at some point, you know, but we figured 90 days was our.
We're learning a hard lesson. So there's 16 people, there's 16 employees that are dedicated to, in some form or fashion, have a tie into camping. Not just the folks on this chart, because there's fire safety people, there's custodians, there's berthing maintenance that are not a part of the actual education overnight camping group on this old chart, because they have other duties as well. So there's 16 people we've got to bring back. The good news is the fire safety folks are fairly easy to bring back on board, and that's 10. The bad news is hiring is, as I mentioned last time, it's just such a long process. It's a long, slow process. You advertise a position, interview, vet someone, and then bring them on board. What we're seeing, though, in the last month or two, and every department head in here can tell you, is, for instance, I've had one application for a job that was open for 2 weeks. This is for some of them that are not, you know, maybe not even a trade. People all over the country. It's just hard to hire folks back right now. I think the food and beverage industry is hemorrhaging. We're realizing right now that we're having a hard time getting folks to come back. So I think that when I said 90 days, it might be, I'm a little bit pessimistic, it might be closer to 4 months before we get the full team back.
So with that being said, in getting on my side of the camping side of it, obviously the first person we would be going after is the replacement of Sarah. And so when you look at it, that's really the only hard cost in advance before we start generating revenue, because everything else that we start bringing in while we do the interviewing process and training process, it will probably be at, you know, a week or two before we start bringing in camping. Marketing is going to obviously sustain an awful lot of expenses in promoting, you know, front end, which I would be discussing development. But if you just look at the hard operation side of it in camping, it's really Sarah's job. I have the proposed budget, but this budget, with the exception of Sarah's position, only kicks in once we're generating revenue. And that's always been the nice, you know, why camping's been so profitable.
Well, that won't be the case if we hire people beforehand.
But we're on my side of it, with the exception of Sarah, you're right, Sarah's position, that's only the real true cost of it, because when I hire in all of the deckhands, and we've, like Mike, when Carrie with his public safety, I've got a lot of people who would like to get back to working here again. So I don't think I'm going to get the full pool of people, but I know of some core people that will come back.
Well, how far in advance do we have to bring those on? I mean, you can't bring them on the day before the campers arrive.
No, absolutely not.
So
Absolutely.
So there is some cost.
It's about 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I feel comfortable 2 weeks training, you know.
From his standpoint, but then
My standpoint, right, two different
the
zones.
berthing area's been shut down, so
Right.
as a cost-saving measure, that isn't, it just
Right.
power utilities, things like that.
Yeah, I'm
So we
just
have to do
doing
some
that.
deep cleaning. I'd estimate from a logistical standpoint about at least a month, but then also an operation standpoint.
So when are y'all thinking it's doable to bring camping back?
I think when we discussed it, our initial discussions, we thought, oh, January. I think we could have the camping program up in October, if we knew going into the next fiscal year that we were going to do it. So from July 1st, August, September, end of October, we could be ready. That's, again, depending on how fast we could hire folks back.
And this is overnight camping. This is not
Yes, ma'am.
day programs.
No, this is
the
overnight
overnight
camping
camping program.
program, day program. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
And a lot of it, to me, goes on what whatever data Chris is pulling up, in development, that's the answer
So
right
that
there.
was the next, well, I think that's sort of our next question is, if we geared up for an October opening, and surge hits in August.
A pandemic again?
Yeah,
Or is that what you mean?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not gonna happen. Certainly doesn't look like it now, but what the heck?
You got to plan for the worst.
Nobody saw it coming the first time around.
Correct.
Then would we have that much out there? I mean, spent at that point? I'm hearing maybe in your end of things, it's going to take a while to get the birthing area ready, I would assume, right?
It will take upwards of 3 weeks to get it up and
Oh,
operational.
that's all.
Yeah,
Everything's been shut just in order to prevent people when turning the faucets and rust doesn't come out. We have to run those systems. We have to bring all the mattresses back in, all the boring backside details. But then I have to advertise for a bed bug contract. That's $32,000. Get Orkin or somebody come back in, inspect, and advertise for ski boat. And I've got to get all those fire safety guys back up and onboarded. We pull the plug on them. Not to get too much into the weeds, but all those firefighters are working different shifts at different departments, and they have to rework their schedule to support.
Yeah, because your schedules.
That's why you need 10. Why do you need 10? Because you have to have 24-hour coverage over the weekend. So I don't want to, again, devolve this conversation, but there's a lot of moving pieces.
All of
to
this will be in our plan for budget. All that stuff,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
how you're going to handle it. We talked last month or the month before about
We have
the
that.
plan for
Right,
the.
right, absolutely. I mean, we have an initial plan. We've got to tweak it a little more and add in some of the stuff because this has been
Just
driving.
curious, what are you going to do about the birthing?
Right, correct. What are we going to do about the meals and
Well,
Birthing
the
as far
birthing
as
is spacing.
200 campers is instead. We have 660
start
bed
off,
spaces,
right.
but we're gonna do 200, and that allows us flexibility over the different compartments to never. I'm going to use the term hot bunk, without allowing us to go through and clean before another group of campers comes in.
because you got that one night Friday and then
Right.
2 night, yeah. So instead of having full night, it's the best utilization space. But you're right, when you really look at, so much of the process is getting the posting done, and that's 30, 40 days right there.
Right,
But
right.
the actual expense doesn't occur until about, 30 to 50 days out, in that range, where you start really incurring money.
So, is there a possibility for things like the bed bug thing to try to get Orkin or somebody to become a partner with us in this effort to bring things back? Can we market? There's some kind of program or something.
I don't think you ever want to say the word bad.
Well, I mean, but I'm just saying, we don't have to say why we're trying to partner with them, but but we've been able to a position to thank them for their support in helping children come back or something. I'm just thinking out loud.
Extermination.
I had a conference call this week with somebody at VA, and they were talking about they have a list of all of these different entities that support nonprofit things that have to do with veterans and VA and all that kind of stuff. And they said basically, if there is money out there, people willing to partner to do all this kind of stuff, but there's two things. They have to know they're not going to be embarrassed, which y'all just said, and they have to know specifically what it is. So if you can show a plan where what you're asking them to do is going to be helpful and successful. So anyway, that might be, I don't know. That seems to be going on in a lot of other places where everybody's in the same boat to try to get things going again. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As to the EIA programs, we fully anticipate that from everything we've talked, that they're going to be in school as of the 23rd, and there's no plans whatsoever for them not being in school in the fall. We've got an awful lot of teachers that have called us and have said things are going to be full speed starting in the fall. So the EIA right now is still in place in all of the budget, so it looks like, you know, nobody's made any move to have that removed. It's gone through, so I'm pretty sure we will be funded.
Well, you said they're going to be back in school on the 23rd. That's next week.
April, yeah.
April.
This next week. I mean, that's statewide.
Are you expecting
No.
anything in this school year?
No, because-
anything would be here at least.
In the fall.
Yeah.
Because they're going straight, because they got the federal mandate was they had to test. They weren't prepared for that. So they're going to be...
How far in advance are you going to need people to be ready for that?
The first step is this position that we're
Yeah,
putting
right.
out, and
You're already
obviously,
moving on that,
and that's curriculum, purely curriculum developing,
Right.
getting everything done, and then I anticipate once we start, because we can set a start date, like we're going to be focusing on the books, and because I want to get the books out this year, like we always get them in September. So this is the number one priority, is getting the books out.
You did that? You just did.
So usually we don't start the structured programs to October, so we wouldn't be looking at incurring any of the part-time staff under EIA or that until, you know, probably September for training, a couple weeks of training. But there's, in my view, there's no reason, you know, other than this position right now, I think, you know.
But I mean, okay, so, but when would you need to, if you're going to say October 1, that's the plan, when would you need to?
Probably the second week of September, we'd really have to start, you know, looking. I mean, I would have to start advertising and seeing what's out there. Probably the first week of September, because it's the same thing.
You can get them recruited and in place in 30 days.
I will
And
know.
prepared for
I
the-
will know in June when the contracts go out for teachers, and because I know all the coordinators and Barbara Harefield. Unfortunately, that's the job that she inherited, is overseeing that process for the district. We will know in June what the shortage is and how many teachers didn't renew their contracts, and then if I find out that number, that gives me the pool that I'm drawing on.
Yeah.
So I'm not. It's never been an issue to us in filling these positions. So I feel very comfortable, Wayne, in starting the first week of September and getting those positions filled. Because the structured programs require 6 instructors a day. And they're like the firemen, you know, we rotate them in. They're 1099s, so I'm not going to tell them they got to work. So that's why we have such a large pool. But we're really only using 6. And then it's fully funded. And a portion of that position is funded out of the EIA.
So your distance learning and the alternative kind of programs, where will they be?
The major part of the distance learning, which this position and I will work on, and with Hannah, is focusing on these, is just making sure the books get done. What happened this year and why it was such a challenge was, number one, we were short-staffed, but the biggest challenge was we didn't have a working number to work off of. We normally work off of the 30 or 45 day number, and that each school tells us how many students they have, and we don't call every school to find out how many students they have. This year they had no idea, so it was time-consuming having to figure out how many books to send to what school, because we didn't know where the kids were. If they start school up normally, with everybody back in school, we will get a report. We will get the books out. We'll get the bid gets done. Everything goes on track, rather than this nightmare that we went through this year. So that's the main focus on the distance learning, is to get the books out. Now, to completing this year. Anna is working on the live stream LMS, which we will continue to offer next year as part of our program, because we think it's a very good additional concept. And I think when I go up in front of the EIA or on the appropriations, what we do is we have a track record. We got an initial amount of money 6 years ago, and it paid for the studio and 30,000 books. And if you look at what we're doing with the same amount of money today, it's phenomenal. And we've never asked for an increase. But that's going to be a discussion we're going to have with the governor's office and everybody else, because I know Melanie wants us to roll the EIA money into the appropriation request. But that's another issue. Schools are back in operation. Hannah has 75% of the programs that already did her first science program have requested to do the B25. John Willman has done a phenomenal job learning this new technology on his 360 camera that we're using. And once he really works it out, I think, Chris, in May we can present and show an example of it. I think that's what...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think in May we can show the board, because it's phenomenal technology that we'll be able to use by Melissa, by Chris. It's just really great technology the three departments can use. As to the remainder of the EIA, 80% of the slots for the teacher conference are filled, but I think that's going to be filled by the end of the week, so we'll have 100% and a waiting list. We've got all of the logistical issues resolved. Lynn Bennett and Joe Danny are going to be the featured speakers, so that will be an interesting thing to hear teachers ask those two questions. The budget, I'm all done with our budgets. It's just Mike, Royce, and I got to sit down and talk and work them out. Camping, we really already talked about it. The appropriation. So the vision on the appropriation is to make, obviously, Pages Point free to every student, tax-paying student in the state. So that
$750 figure.
Well, we're gonna ask for $1 million.
Yeah.
We've been told to ask for $1 million. So
this isn't a non-recurring funds.
This
is
is
out
part of the
one
budget.
point.
this would be part of the budget.
Okay.
And the process starts in August. We file the one sheet paper saying how much we're going to pay. Then we go out in front of the committees in October, and then Ways and Means in January, and the Senate, in February, and then hopefully the governor signs off. The concept is to use the technology in that book and work with Melissa and everybody and take our existing assets, all of our existing assets, and build programs around our existing assets from K through 12. And the concept is to be, and I'm working with it, and we've pretty much got it done where I think we can do it. We would have an iPad that you would be able to give to a teacher, and she would pick what her grade level is. And once she picks it up would come a map, and it would show what exhibits have been, developed for her grade level. She would go to that exhibit, scan in using the same technology, and at that exhibit would come up the lesson plan, the 15, 5-minute, 10-minute, whatever we do at that, and it would just help her. So it's really just touch and play. So it's an interactive, hyper steroid self-guided tour, because that's the only way you're going to be able to handle up to 200 to 300 kids. Why staff it? I don't want to staff it. I want to develop something that they're useful for, and we get the numbers. We just want the numbers. We want the people. It's like the $28, $25 ticket. That's what we want. We want the numbers coming in. We want to make it as easy as possible for the teachers. You give them something that no other museum does. And what is the cost and the challenge? The challenge is developing the curriculums, and right now Hannah and I are the only ones that are doing the JavaScripting, and I'm doing most of the coding for it. And fortunately enough, Chris is working with us with John, because John is just a phenomenal asset. But we got time, and we got the summer, and that's what we're focusing on is getting that ready for presentation. But as we know, the appropriation kicks in 2022, not 2021, 2022.
John
So-
Willman is the videographer.
Okay,
So it piggybacks off the EIA in technology, but for the real numbers that we would have to be facing with and responsible for, 2022.
okay. So you had this plan for your website. This was the teacher friendly thing. It was showing what they would do.
Mhm.
Did you get this up?
I remember it.
I know, but is it out there? for
Our
people to
website
click
is
on and
very
see?
well. Our website's working very well.
But it has it helps these teachers, like, the assessments on here that are good for 1 week. This gives her control of all the assessment tools built into the program. Are these capabilities that you
This
put
is
in?
all the capabilities we'll be building into.
Okay, so when might this be done?
The beta.
I mean, I hate this asking.
I know the beta tests on that. I mean, because really, you're looking at the department.
When we say our website,
Our
we're
website's
talking
Patriots Point.
Point's website. You're
Right,
building
correct.
these into
Right.
that as part
The
of
only-
the educational side.
The only thing we do with the Weebly website right now is park this technology. So in other words, it's not directing it to the Weebly, website, but all of the technology to make that work is we have to have a dedicated server. And we right now, in working with Cole, we can't put it on Patriots Point's dedicated server. So
what
we
else
have
is
to have a
on there?
dedicated, whether it's Weebly or eImmersion or anybody else. I've got to, we just got to rent space.
I get
That's all.
that part. What else is on that site? The old site.
As of right now, it's just all EIA stuff. That's it. It's all that technology
So it hadn't
stuff.
changed since.
No, it hasn't changed. We haven't added. We added all to Patriots
So you
Point
have
site.
two sites. You have our site and that site.
But Weebly is a service.
Because we were going to get rid of that
Right.
site.
Weebly is a service to me. Weebly is.
But if it's housed on another site, that site is a site.
It gives you website capabilities, yes, but it is a parking service.
No, I understand the technology piece.
Okay.
I'm talking about the site that it's housed on.
Right, but I can shut it down once I can find a place to park all of the technology.
What's
And
the
we have
plan
not
for
found that. Cole and I have not figured that out yet. We are trying to do that. And the second we can do that, I'll shut down Weebly. But it to me, it's
Do
just
you
a
need all
service.
the other stuff on the site just to go to that, just to access the technology? I mean, our agreement was to get rid of the site
Right.
4, 5, 6 months.
I
ago.
don't think so, because the flight academy is irrelevant. So they nobody's using it. I don't think any of our. I'm not sure, Wayne. I'll have to look into it. I think it really is just the parking issue Cole and I haven't figured out yet.
I
mean,
get that piece.
yeah.
I get that piece.
If we could switch that over tomorrow, shut it tomorrow. But I just got to make sure. Right now, the challenge is when you do the JavaScript coding, I need to have an HTML link.
I get that. I get
And
that.
right now, that's unfortunately is the Weebly site. But it's not like I'm directing anybody. In fact, the documentation that went out on that directs everything to the Patriots Point site. All of our references now are all being directed to Patriots Point.
Chris, could that be housed on our site?
You can have those houses videos in several different places. You can do YouTube as an unlisted video.
But I
You can
can't
do
use it.
Vimeo with our Vimeo site. You can do our website.
Can't use YouTube because of what?
Schools.
Schools.
You can use Vimeo though and some of those
Yeah.
other things. And Blue Eye can put it on our website.
Cole and I are trying to. I mean, when you look at the cost, we're paying $160 a year to house everything, and it's just to transfer everything and rewrite all the coding for. I mean, my recommendation would be to try to figure out, and I'll just work with Hannah on it, if there's a way that we don't need the domain name. And then, but I've got.
Well, why not just get rid of the content?
because it's in the books.
Hmm?
It's in the books.
No, that's the stuff they're accessing with the technology. I'm talking about the other content on the site.
I can get rid of all the.
No, we can talk about this later.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't
gotta
want to
go
take
back.
up all
I gotta
this
go back
time.
and look at. I don't really look at the site that much, but I can go back and look at the site. I know what you're saying. Yeah, if it's not on the books, there's no reason for it. We can clean it off the site, right? And
Yeah,
just have stuff
that's
that's
what I'm
only on the
saying.
books. Sure. No, that's fine. I just you understand. I need the domain name links right now. Otherwise, I got to go back and recode everything, which is we can do over the summer. Once I know we have the firm, whether it's PPDA, patriotspoint.org, and then I just go back and recode and link it in, and it's parked on Patriots Point's website. And I don't even think Blue Ion has to do that. I mean, they may just have to build a skeleton box.
The ability's there, we just gotta put a plan when you're ready.
Yeah, I think they just have to build a skeleton box and give me a file, really, which is all it is. It's like a Dropbox. They're building a Dropbox within Patriots Point site, and I just drop everything into it, all the content into it, and I can go back to the blended learning, and I'll just look at the page and wipe out anything that's not in the book. Just delete the page.
Keith, so this 2023 strategic plan that's, and I mean, I know this is an organic document that changes and all that kind of stuff, and paces and everything. But there are a lot of things in here. I mean, there's a lot here. And there, again, is connected. It can be connected to money. Is there any chance that you know of with what you're working with, of a way that we could hire a professional grant writer to go after that federal money? Because they're out there, you can hire them. But if we had the right materials and the right protocols for it, just kind of like formulate our wish list, show why we need it, and then we hire somebody who knows how to get this money and knows how to navigate that federal system for that money. I mean, what do you think? Is that a pathway or not?
I look at my relationship with Allison, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison. I'm going to speak on this, but it behooves me. It's beholden on me first to come up with a reason, and then I go to Allison and I say, "Here's the reason. What do you think?" Like, I'll give you an example. The Whittle engine was made by GE, so I called up GE, and they couldn't believe I had one. So they were all excited. So Allison and I are now talking about the potential going to GE about funding this beautiful exhibit. But it took finding the idea first. We can find federal grant writers out there and look at grants, but we have to first identify why we want the money.
So what I'm going for is the money that's out there that, like the aquarium got, that pays us back for what we lost when we were closed.
That's Mike's and Bryce's issue.
But there are people that know how to navigate that system, and you can hire them to do it for you. So and I don't know if they're going to change the rules on that, or what the deal is, but I think that is a way to pursue that if we've got the elements to put in there. But there are a lot of opportunities there.
In education, we develop the need, and we'll find the money.
Yeah. Well,
we will find the money. We just let's develop the need.
Well, to your point, you're right, 100%. We've got to corral, reach out, and do what we can do.
And the missed, and then that's an operational thing. All of the things that were lost because we were closed, including, and I think the one that's hard to say no to is when you can attach that to what the kids have lost and what the campers have lost, and what the all of that, really stuff that's not all that. It's not measurable. It's not. It's just the things that are lost, that, you know, in addition to the actual losses, money losses. Okay, what else? Staffing and funding needs and requirement. I think we beat that one to death. Restart camping. Okay, well, I'm glad, you know, so basically the answer to this question is this: we're looking at an October goal to restart camping, and then education is
I would say it's going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
education's just moving forward
Okay.
as it normally would.
Susan, I wanted, for a point of clarification, that's if the board decides, okay, you know, go for it with restarting camping. It would be the end of October, so it would be a 4-month process to get a camping program up and running, I think. So
It's just nice to have a date.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a great
And-
target.
So the board doesn't have to make that decision right now. I mean, we gotta know a couple of them.
Absolutely.
Correct,
3 months.
absolutely.
But well, to your exactly that. But we have to budget for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I get
that's
that.
true.
Ducks in a
Yeah.
row.
And my budget, when I present my budget, it really doesn't kick in until that decision is made.
Right, and well, the same would be true with camping
Right.
too, but I think that, I mean, obviously in the budget, we'd expect that the company that a plan for all this stuff.
And because the way I wrote my budget was as if, I mean, and I'll go back and revise it because I obviously start July 1st, but I can revise it down. But it really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's, at least with camping, it's a generator. And education, the way I will write the budget out is as if we're starting as a normal school year.
Well, for all of it to try to, you know, stay with our strategic plan, we've got to put the things in place and then try to figure out how to make them start to
Correct.
activate them.
Right.
So, well, good. Any questions? Any public comments? So moved. Adjournment. Thank you all for your time. Mike, here's that definition.